Okay guys, so I just got done watching Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions, and this video is going to be like a review, but it's probably going to be more of like a spoiler discussion, to be honest. So if you guys aren't seen the movie but you're big fans of Yu-Gi-Oh! 100% go watch this movie. It was amazing. Now, getting into the movie itself and, spoilers and things, so like I say, this is your chance to get out of here and go watch the movie. Jumping into the movie, straight away, what I noticed is that this is a Kaiba movie, which for anyone who's a fan of Kaiba during the series, you'll appreciate that. For me, Yugi's the main character, but to be honest, I was more of a Kaiba and Joey fan. They always stuck out to me within the series. You've got Joey who's like the everyday man, and Kaiba who's kind of like, he's supposed to be a bad guy or an antagonist to Yugi, but he's one of the most interesting characters, and this movie very heavily focuses on him, which as a fan of Kaiba I enjoyed. The bad guy in this movie, he was kind of just a typical bad guy for Yu-Gi-Oh! Really. The whole story of this movie, it was very much like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc compressed. It's quite a long movie, it comes in at about 2 hours long, and at times you can kind of feel it, and we'll get to places where I feel like they could have added things and took things away. Well, one of the things that surprised me about this movie, and I don't know whether it surprised me or not, but there's basically only 4 duels in the movie. And getting into the duels, the first one is between Kaiba and the main bad guy, a guy called Diva. I remember watching this duel, and obviously it comes pretty early on in the movie, probably around 20 minutes in or something like that. At this early point in the movie, I didn't exactly know it was a Kaiba movie, so when Diva's battling Kaiba in a duel, I actually had no idea who was going to win. There was points where I thought, oh, maybe Diva will win to make a point of how strong he is, is able to beat Kaiba in a duel. But then anyway, the duel ends, to be continued basically. They both have life points left at the end, and they both go their separate ways. An awesome bit of the movie, maybe even my favourite bit of the movie or my favourite scene, is when Kaiba summons Obelisk. He gives the great line of this isn't a monster, it's a god, and boom, he summons Obelisk out of nowhere. And yeah, after Obelisk makes his move, the duel kind of gets left. Kaiba was there for the Millennium Puzzle, and he gets out of there. He don't feel the need to continue his duel. But that's basically what this movie's about. Kaiba, he wants to bring back the Pharaoh for his rematch. Diva, he's there to be honest, he was kind of a bland villain with a bland story. I can't even really remember what he was there for. A typical kind of takeover sort of thing, or he wanted revenge on Bakura because Bakura's dad accidentally killed Diva's mentor or something like that, and it's kind of complicated and pointless. Like I say, this is a Kaiba movie, and not even really about Kaiba and Yugi. I mean, don't get me wrong, the duel at the end of the movie, but basically about Kaiba trying to get the Pharaoh back. He's going to do whatever it takes to get there. Another thing about this movie is the animation looked great. The characters, they all look really polished, and nobody looked too different. It wasn't like Pokemon where Ash Ketchum, it now looks totally different. Although Mokuba did seem to have a complete character redesign. He did look completely different, but everybody else, they look like the classic characters. One thing that kind of let this movie down, the animation of the monsters. Now, everybody had the classic animation, as in they didn't look too different, they just looked a little bit more polished. But the monsters, the cards, they had a totally different animation. It was kind of more of a 3D animation, and I think that kind of let it down in a way. I saw what they was going for. It kind of don't make sense for the monsters to look like humans, so the monsters, they really kind of distinguish them from the characters such as Yugi, Kaiba, and all those characters. But at some point, I feel like the monsters animation kind of let it down. The monsters always seem obscured by something, whether it was light or an effect going on, and I just couldn't quite see the monsters as clearly as I wanted to. But either way, it was still good, and I still really enjoyed it. Getting into the duels, one of the things that kind of upset me about this movie is earlier on I said that I'm a big fan of Joey, which is true, and we didn't get very much Joey in this movie. It had a part, and I'm going to get to where I feel like things could have been taken out and things could have been added. Joey he gets sent to another dimension for a small part of the movie. It was alright and kind of added to the story, but I feel like I'd rather have seen Joey have a duel at some point. Considering this movie is it's a Kaiba movie, but it's also very much like a final send-off to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise, which I hope it in. I really hope there's a sequel to this movie, or a sequel series, or just another movie in general, because this movie really reinvigorated my love for Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I'm going to be sorry if this is the last piece of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Team that we get, especially considering Joey didn't even duel. But anyway, getting into the final duels that do happen, you know, obviously the movie, so you've got the bad guy, and it's all to do with recreating the Millennium Puzzle, I suppose. And Yugi's got a piece of the Millennium Puzzle, the bad guy's got a piece of the Millennium Puzzle, and Kaiba's got the full Millennium Puzzle, and it comes down to we're all gonna duel, and whoever's at the end is gonna have the Millennium Puzzle and all the pieces to create it. So what surprised me is this is the first duel with Yu-Gi-Oh, and it must come further than an hour into the movie, and Yugi decides that he wants to battle the main bad guy first. Well, there's only one bad guy, and Yugi decides that he wants to battle him first in this little tournament that Kaiba set up. It's a 3-man tournament. So, you know, Yugi goes up against the bad guy. It's a pretty clear-cut duel. It's a fairly short duel, and Yugi gets the job done pretty easy. You know, like I say, it's quite a short duel, and yeah, Yugi gets the job done, and then he goes on to battle Kaiba. Now, Yugi obviously has 2 pieces of the puzzle, and Kaiba has the full puzzle itself. You know, he's been trying to recreate it, but it was missing the 2 pieces. So, you know, Yugi and Kaiba battle, and this is a great battle between Yugi and Kaiba. You know, it gives us everything we want pretty much. You know, we've got the Dark Magicians in there, we've got the Blue Eyes, as we'd expect. There's probably some new monsters in there. You know, Kaiba's got some new dragons, Yugi's got some new monsters, I think. You know, Yugi's got a really interesting monster where it's like a castle, but it's also a monster as well. And yeah, it's just a really great duel, and, you know, some great lines. Kaiba delivers a line, and I can't quite remember it, but Yugi's like, I'm going to take it to the next level. No, I think Yugi's on about taking it to the next level. And then Kaiba like thanks him for taking it to the next level. So now Kaiba's gonna take it to the maximum level, and he draws like maximum dragon or something like that. And Kaiba's always delivering the great lines, and that's why this being a Kaiba movie, you really get what you want from it. You know, you've got cheesy lines, epic lines, just all sort of lines in there from Kaiba, and it's great. Another thing that I thought was hilarious from Kaiba is, you know, this guy is basically built a space station in the sky to recreate the Millennium Puzzle. The lengths that this guy will go to get his rematch with the Pharaoh is unreal. He's also got like a team of tactical guys who I feel like they're specially trained to take out people with Millennium Puzzles, or like Millennium Powers, if you guys know what I'm on about, you know, the ancient powers. He's got like a tactical team who take out the main bad guy, and, you know, it's pretty hilarious considering Kaiba's supposed to be like a 19-year-old kid or whatever. But anyway, getting into like the final battle, so, you know, obviously Yugi, he beats the bad guy, he goes on to fight Kaiba. You know, this is another duel that gets left to be continued. You know, I think I can't remember who takes the last hit. I think it's Kaiba who takes the last hit, and he's down to 100 life points. But then all of a sudden, Diva, the main bad guy, he comes back, and he's now wearing the Millennium Ring, and he's basically a monster himself. And it's now up to Yugi and Kaiba to team up and defeat him. Personally, I was happy to see them both team up and take on a common enemy. You know, I guess it's kind of expected in these sort of movies. You know, it's kind of like Batman and Superman. Obviously, they're going to team up at some point. This is Yugi and Kaiba teaming up, and yeah, and they take on the bad guy. And anyway, you know, it's your typical duel back and forth. And then Kaiba makes a decision where he's going to have to sacrifice himself so Yugi can go on and win the duel. But mainly, he makes out like he's sacrificing himself so the Pharaoh can come back, you know. Just before this duel takes place, Yugi says basically, oh, I'm sorry, but the Pharaoh won't come back. It's not up to me, it's not up to you, it's up to the Pharaoh whether he wants to come back. And Kaiba sacrificing himself now, he disappears into like the Shadow Realm, or I think it's a different sort of realm where he goes to. I think it's like the Dimension Realm, but it's basically the same sort of thing as the Shadow Realm. You know, he kind of disintegrates, and then, you know, Yugi's tapping into the heart of the cards, and then boom, all of a sudden the Pharaoh comes back, he draws a card, he don't even say what the card is, the Pharaoh don't even speak, he plays the card, it gets the job done, it wipes the bad guy out. You know, it's kind of a magical moment. We get the Pharaoh's music, which I guess throughout this whole movie it must not have played, because when the Pharaoh comes back and his music hits, it was instant chills. And another thing that I really liked about this movie is we get to see Yu-Gi-Oh! We get to see Yugi throughout the whole movie up until this moment simply on his own. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot that he must have, at the end of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, he must have given the puzzle up and, you know, dismantled it and said goodbye to the Pharaoh. So it's just Yu-Gi-Oh on his own. You know, usually when you're watching Yu-Gi-Oh the animated series, he's always talking to the Pharaoh in his mind and things like that. But throughout this whole movie, there's none of that, and it was really interesting to see Yu-Gi battle Jewel by himself. You know, he duels Diva, the main bad guy, by himself, and then he duels Kaiba by himself, and he's simply relying on the heart of the cards rather than relying on the Pharaoh dueling for him, if you guys know what I mean. But anyway, the Pharaoh, he does come back in this moment. Like I said, he plays the card, he wipes out the villain, and then there's this moment where the Pharaoh and Yu-Gi are looking at each other, and you know, they're smiling and they leave with a head nod. You know, it's great. The Pharaoh don't even have to say anything. Kaiba comes back. A lot of people got sent to the Dimension Realm while this duel was going on, so everyone who got sent to the Dimension Realm, they all come back. Kaiba comes back and, you know, he looks at Yugi and he says, I always knew the Pharaoh were going to come back, or something like that. And you know, it's just a great moment. You know, everyone's, you know, it's the happy ending that you want to Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And then the film kind of wraps up with everyone going kind of the separate ways. Taya leaves on a plane. I'm not too sure where she goes. The rest of the gang have kind of all graduated from school, and Taya graduated from school as well, obviously. And, you know, everything's kind of wrapping up, and that's why this feels like it's really is the end of Yu-Gi-Oh, which I hope it isn't. You know, oh man, after watching this, I was just dying for another movie or another series, and this movie came out in 2016, so it's been 4 years, and, you know, who knows, anytime now there might be one announced, and I really would enjoy that. I'd like to see Joey duel in the next movie if there is one, and I'd like to see more Yugi dueling without the Pharaoh. Now the ending to this movie is something else. I mentioned earlier the extremes that Kaiba will go to get his rematch. Well, he's built himself a time machine, and he's going to go back in, and he does go back in time to find the Pharaoh and ask for his rematch. Now, this is amazing. You know, we get to see Kaiba, and he's in ancient Egypt, and this is only like a 20-30 second scene. It's like the very last scene in the movie, and he walks up to the Pharaoh, and once again, there's no word spoken. We just know what time it is. It's time to duel. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up the discussion on Dark Side of the Dimensions. Let me know what you guys thought down below, and who are your favourite characters in Yu-Gi-Oh? Do you think they should come back for another movie or continue the series with Yugi and Joey in the gang? Let me know down below, and I'll see you next time.